There's been a lot of buzz around Miltech Simulation's release of the MH-60 for Microsoft Flight Simulator and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 ever since they announced it, but really since they showcased it at Flight Sim Expo. Today is release day. I asked them for a copy to be able to review. They were able to send me one, and I have put together my first impressions, and it is a beautiful add-on. It's flying very well, and I'm really quite enjoying myself with it. So let's take a look at this much anticipated Seahawk helicopter from Miltech Simulations. The first thing I did was pick a random livery on the Sierra model and loaded it on the ramp at one of the included sceneries, and this is at Kodiak. That's kind of one of the nice things about Miltech. They've always included sceneries or missions with their aircraft. I have both the MV-22 Osprey and the CH-47 Chinook, and I think they're great. I purchased both of those, and actually the Osprey was my very first Microsoft Flight Sim video that I ever made. So it's kind of cool to be able to come back to Miltech to do a little bit more with their first helicopter offering in 2024. So it's a very beautiful 3D model inside and out, and the texturing is very well done. There's a little bit of blockiness on the textures when you get really, really close, but from a reasonable distance, it's very, very nice. It's very well done, and the textures look very realistic, and it's got very well done mapping, and the way the light hits the aircraft, it's spectacular. It's one of the things in Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 is how realistic the aircraft look, and if you've got a good model and good texturing, they can look very, very real.
Five feet.
I wanted to take it for a quick flight and get my initial impressions of how well it handled. The variant of helicopter that this is, it's kind of known for having a very well-implemented stability system, or SAS, and I thought that it should be very, very stable and very easy to fly, which it is. And I was very pleasantly surprised at how well the flight model is portrayed. It handles nicely in hover, and I was actually able to fly it pretty well with all my different control setups, and I ended up doing quite a bit of the video just casually flying it with a gamepad, and I quite enjoyed it. It's a nice helicopter that is not overly challenging to fly, which is exactly the way it was designed to be used, so that you can spend more of your time focusing on what you're doing with the helicopter and less time flying it. So, with that said, there are a few quirks with the flight model that I'm not familiar with, so I'm going to have to defer and wait and see what some of the subject matter experts say on how the AFCS system, or automated flight control system, in this helicopter is supposed to behave. So, and I did ask the developers a few questions about it, but having never flown one, I'm not sure exactly how it's supposed to respond, but it doesn't coordinate turns very well. You do still have to use a little bit of rudder input or tail rotor
20
input
feet.
to coordinate the turns. I thought that the system should handle that, but talking to the devs, they did say that that's actually because of the heading mode. So if it's on heading mode, it's actually still trying to maintain that heading, and that's why it's not wanting to turn just by banking. So I need to dive a little further into the system and see how it's supposed to be used and make sure that I'm using it correctly before I say whether or not it's supposed to be the way that it's operating in the sim or not. But you do need, and that's normal for any aircraft, to need a little bit of yaw input to coordinate flight, and it's normal to be expected. So the pedal inputs felt natural. There was some torque response, but most of it was muted by the SAS system, but it is still there. So the underlying aerodynamic effects for how a helicopter should behave, they're performing correctly, and that was how I was feeling pretty good about the flight model, because it was doing what it was supposed to do. But as far as like how the stability systems work, I need to research them to make sure that they're working how they are supposed to, because I'm not entirely positive. But it was a good and pleasant and fun experience to fly this helicopter, and I really enjoyed it. This one is one of the models that I need to dive into the systems a little bit more to understand and know how to operate it. I tend to do a little bit more GA flying with smaller light helicopters, single engine, and doing short hops on a VFR scenario. But to get more into this helicopter, especially the Tango version, the search and rescue version for the Coast Guard, I think that one is pretty cool, and I'd like to learn how to use the hoist, and especially when the mission hub comes out from Miltech, I want to be able to do some firefighting and do some search and rescue with it. And for some of those longer flight times, I'm going to have to learn how to use the autopilot. I'm going to have to learn how to use some of these systems, so I'll get to dive into those a little bit more as I get further into this helicopter and learn how to use some of the more advanced functions. With that being said, though, I was able to jump in with minimal setup on a gamepad and casually fly it and have a ton of fun with it and fly it how I expect to. And it's really, really enjoyable, and I think it's accessible. So this is something that's going to be a really big hit, I think, because it's a crowd favorite. Everybody loves the Blackhawk Seahawk helicopter variant, and it's iconic around the world, and this is easy to fly. It's going to be available on all platforms, being either PC or Xbox, and it's manageable with whatever kind of control setup you have. So I'm still waiting on my dedicated helicopter control setup for repair, so that'll be the last one that I talk about in future videos upcoming. I should expect that back in my hands next week, but flying it with two of the different control setups that I have was very straightforward and easy. So I think this is going to be a great accessible helicopter to a lot of users. And I think some of the discussions out there about price point and what people spend their money on, if flight simming is a hobby that you enjoy and this is a helicopter that you're interested in, I think this add-on is definitely worth the price that they're asking, because you get 3 variations of helicopters with a ton of detail, a ton of options, and it has the ability to work with the upcoming mission hub that you can also bundle it with. So there's a lot of functionality built into this helicopter at this price point. And even without that extra functionality, 3 models of the helicopter with detail and texture work done as well as this one, I think are absolutely worth the price that they're asking. And I think that's kind of like right in where we are for the cost of add-ons for flight simulation. transition from cruise flight back into hover was pretty straightforward too, and it handled like a real helicopter would. I would make some comparisons between this model and the HPG MH-60, another highly automated helicopter. It flies really well, but the underlying aerodynamics are still there. They're just being handled
20 feet.
by actuators and a computer. So the sim is managing that well. Obviously, there's no actual actuators or second computer inside your flight sim doing those things. It's simulated by code, but in the aircraft, that's what's actually happening. Another feature that Miltech has in this add-on, it's not necessarily a MH-60 feature, it's a feature to this add-on where it basically auto trims, and you don't really have to mess around with the trim too much if you're using something like a gamepad. It holds the attitude that you put it to with the controller, so it makes it nice to fly with a short throw controller. The rotor animations are something that need a little bit of work, and it has been acknowledged by the developer, and other YouTubers have kind of noted it. Depending on what your hardware setup is, some of the other videos I've seen, I know that they were using AMD hardware. I'm using NVIDIA and Intel hardware, and you can see there's a slight difference, but there's a little bit of artifacting, and I did notice in VR. This right here is not VR, but the previous cockpit flight was in VR, and that there was a little bit of artifacting with DLSS implemented. So I don't know if that's going to be also corrected in what the developer has said has been fixed, but they did acknowledge in their Discord and have stated that the rotor animations, there is a known issue and it's something that's been corrected already. So it isn't something to worry about, but you've probably seen in different videos that there's a varying quality of rotor animations. If you've been paying attention to this release and you've seen multiple videos. If this is the first one you've seen, then you might not know. Visually, it's stunning from every angle, all three models, and every detail. It's a very beautiful add-on, and it definitely gives you some nostalgic, picturesque views, I guess, or iconic backdrops in some of the scenery that they chose to showcase with this helicopter. And as you can see flying around these areas, it looks spectacular. Oh, and the tail wheel works properly. That was kind of one of the other things that was fun to play with. In both versions, the steering when you unlock the tail wheel works correctly, and that's kind of a nice feature. As I get to spend more time with it, I look forward to playing with more of the features like the FLIR, the forward-looking infrared, and the hoist features, and integrating it with the mission hub and seeing what can be done with it, and trying out the Bambi bucket and doing some fire flying. So that would be good, and I'm just really enjoying what is already available in this helicopter, and I just started scratching the surface. I haven't got into any of the autopilot modes. I haven't got into any of the additional features. I just kind of started messing around with it, and turned on and off some of the options, turned on and off some of the weapons on the Sierra model, and just started to look at what the package has to offer and the amount of detail that is available, and it's pretty impressive. It's a nice helicopter. It's a lot of fun to fly, and this would be a very
20 feet.
easy go-to add-on to just casually sit down and fly with a controller.
20
And
feet. 10
I think
feet.
it's going to be accessible for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy it, and I think the price is just right.
5 feet. 5 feet.
Thanks for watching. Be safe, be kind, and I'll see you in the next video.